Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television AIT. Welcome to Focus Nigeria, your program where we put the searchlight on topical issues in our polity for your better understanding of the issues. My name is Benga Aruleba. The tempo of the polity will increase today for so many reasons. First, the president has returned to the country. He returned last night from London after spending a few days there. The president set opposition tongues wagging again when his spokesmen, many of them announced it, that he would be heading for the UK after attending the 72 annual General Summit of heads of government in New York, the United States of America. The belief by some that the president may be away yet again for another spell of time immediately took the center stage and was only doused a bit after the president had spoken at the UN summit and had some meetings with some select heads of state, including that of America, Donald Trump, and got so much applause. Even though the president's growing global acceptance and the kind words expressed towards him at the UN has disarmed those waiting to make heavy meals out of his speech, the London stopover was one that was going to provide the next opportunity for controversy. But he is back, the Lion King is back, and I guess this is a further testimony to the good health of the president. And another reason for the increase in the tempo of the polity, the National Assembly has come alive and a lot of politicking is expected. The National Assembly has already done 2 years in a 4-year tenure, and so perhaps it's time to rejig the leadership and composition of the committees. Sources in the Senate say there is an air of unease already as senators jostle for the best in the exercise. And one phase you should watch out for today as the Senate reconvenes is Senator Mohammed Ali Dume, who lost his position in some high-wire politicking as Senate leader and then, few months after, got suspended because of his alleged perceived undermining activities. Not one finger was raised in support of Ali Dume when his suspension 6 months ago, when he was suspended 6 months ago. And quite unusually, the Borno senator bore his problem with so much equanimity. No complaints, nothing, no protest. He didn't even go to court. Anyway, and still on politics, some evolving issues in the PDP this morning. The senator representing Ogun East Senatorial District, Buruji Kashamu, may just be on his way out of the umbrella party because of his current hard stance and stubborn disposition to the party. Sometime last week, the National Caretaker Committee announced that Buruji Kashamu should appear before its disciplinary committee to answer charges of anti-party activities. But a day after that decision, Kashamu and some of his colleagues in the zonal executive put together by Alimodu Sheriff for the Southwest, while he was still in charge, headed for a federal high court in Ado-Ekiti, where they got an order restraining the PDP from giving effect to the decision for Kashamu to appear for disciplinary purposes. Justice Taiwo, who gave that order, has for now adjourned hearing on the substantive suit to October 4, that's next week. But Kashamu has not stopped there. He has now written to the PDP, pointedly stating why he will not honor or answer the query issued to him. In his letter, the senator insists that there is no basis for the query, and it has not breached any article of the PDP's constitution. Now, don't forget that the disciplinary committee of the PDP is headed by a man who brooks no nonsense, Chief Tom Ikimi, one of the chief enforcers. Okay, you can see the beret. And don't forget that under the new PDP, they call it, taking the party to court when you have not taken advantage of or exploited the party's internal mechanisms for resolving dispute is treated as high crime. In actual fact, political treason, if you permit. So, you see why some are already singing the knock committees for Kashamu in the PDP? Time will tell. Okay, our discussion is up next, and this morning we are continuing our focus on the NGO Regulatory Commission Bill, currently pending before the House of Representatives and generating so much controversy. The bill has been slated for a public hearing after its first and second reading, but since last week, when a short video by a leading voice in the civil society in Nigeria, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, went viral on social media, the controversy has reached fever pitch. Efforts by the promoters of the bill to explain the rationale, which came at the weekend, has not done so much to douse the controversy. So for now, Nigerians are picking up the issues, making meanings of their own. And at the end of the day, this bill will probably have attracted the most attention in recent time. But Professor Chidi Odinkalu joins me this morning. He'll be joining me shortly. So let's prepare to welcome him with this video that went viral last week. And I'm sure this video must have recorded, I don't want to say thousands, probably millions of views already. Let's take the video, and of course, that serves as a prologue as we usher in Professor Chidi Odinkalu.
Assembly is currently considering the NGO Regulation Bill for passage. It has gone through the first reading, it's gone through second reading, it's now in committee stage, and later this month, the Committee on NGOs in the House of Representatives in Abuja will be holding a public hearing on the bill. And it's important that you understand what this bill means and its implications for both yourself as a citizen and for the country in general. And let me be clear, this is the most dangerous piece of legislation that has come for consideration in the National Assembly since the return to civil rule in 1999. It covers the activities of every entity and everybody that is not government. And it affects churches, mosques, schools, universities, hospitals, everything, as well as humanitarian operations wherever they are taking place in the country, whether in the northeast or in the southeast or south-south, whether in the middle belt or in the northwest or southwest. It is totalitarian in its consequences. Now, what does the bill require? Basically, all resources, all funds, everything that are collected or liable to be collected and made available to service communities, individuals in need in this country will be subject to Abuja. Before you can raise funds in your church and your mosque, you have to get Abuja's permission. After you've raised the money, you have to return them to Abuja for Abuja to tell you what to do with them. And when you've done that, only Abuja can help you to do your audits. Nobody can operate anything without clearance from Abuja. It's worse than a totalitarian piece of legislation. For the old mamas and old papas doing isusu in the village, that is revolving credit. Before you do your collections, you come to Abuja for clearance. After you've done your collections, before you share the money or rotate the collections amongst the beneficiaries, you come to Abuja for clearance. Ahmadiyya movement will have to come to Abuja for clearance. NASFAT will come to Abuja to do anything. The mosques that do collections every Friday to support people in their congregations and their communities will all have to account for that money to civil servants who will either tell them what to do with it or collect it and trouser it into their pockets. The churches will be out of business, the mosques will be endangered. This is what the legislators want us to subscribe to. And as a citizen, you've got to understand that this means that there will be no voice of criticism for government. Nobody can tell government anything. What this body proposes to do, what government is proposing with this bill, is that after it has been passed, everybody, organizing in Nigeria under any form. Students, Old Students Association, Reverend Sisters in convents, Reverend Fathers and pastors, wherever they may be, imams, alfas, and everybody, you will have to apply to Abuja for them to register you to operate. If they agree to register, they can refuse to register you, in which case you cannot do anything. Now, if they agree to register you, however, you will have to only hold that license for 2 years. After those 2 years, you will have to apply for them to renew your license. If they agree at that time to renew your license, you can continue operating for another 2 years. If they don't agree, that license lapses. If you try to do anything without that license, you'll be liable to be imprisoned for 18 months. And if they are sympathetic and agree not to send you to jail, you may be let go with a fine of 500,000 naira. The civil servants will collect this money in the name of the politicians. It will be used to fire up political power that will not be accountable to any one of us. And this is why I'm saying that this is the most dangerous piece of legislation that's been considered in our country to date, in the past 20 years. But you can do something about it. This does not have to be law. This will not be law if you agree that as the citizen, you are the boss. Contact your legislator at the state level, contact your legislator in Abuja, contact your senator and your distinguished senator in your senatorial zone and tell them this will not happen. This is your country too. And unless you fight for it, these people are going to destroy it, not just for you, but for your children and for your grandchildren. And that they don't have a mandate to do. My name is Chidi Odinkalu. I'm a Nigerian citizen.
Yes, Professor Chidi Odinkalu is here. He's a human rights activist, former chairman, National Human Rights Commission Governing Board, President General, Unity Schools, Old Students Association, IFSOSA.
Good morning, sir.
You are the most talked about Nigerian today,
No.
probably. Let's start from this video. What prompted this video? Let me tell you, in case you have not heard some of the things people are saying, that this video was motivated by malice. Malice in the sense that the last time the House Committee on NGOs tried to conduct a kind of informal hearing on this bill, you were invited, you were at the National Assembly, but you were not allowed entry. One account had it that you refused to indicate your state of origin in the attendance register, and so you were prevented from entry. Tell us what is true and what is not true.
First of all, I love my country. Nobody has a monopoly of patriotism. And I'm a Nigerian. This is where it will end for me. I'm not a Nigerian by birth or by descent alone. I'm a Nigerian by choice. Okay? That is very important to me. And I think every one of us has got to decide what is necessary and important for them and how they need to approach it. A democracy is like bacon. You know bacon, the food. You see, the pig is so interested in feeding you, it provides itself for you to eat. It is total commitment. A democracy needs citizens who are committed totally, like the pig in your rasher of bacon. And, you know, part of our problem is that we have abandoned the Nigerian space for some people who are supposed to be politicians. And they do whatever they want to do with their country, or with our country, and we're supposed to tolerate it. And sometimes you get to a point as a citizen where people push their luck a little too far. What's happened? Number one, The National Assembly has amended our constitution or claimed to do so without consulting us. Well, that constitution is our document. They changed it, they rewrote it, they gave themselves immunity, they made themselves eligible to be members of boards of parastatals, they gave themselves all manner of things. They did not consult us. Ultimately, they decide because the National Assembly, in the National Assembly resides the will of the people. And I have huge respect for anybody who would agree to go through elections and serve in the National Assembly. But it also comes with responsibility. And the way they went about changing our constitution was not responsible, in my view.
Yeah, but the process hasn't ended.
It doesn't need to have ended.
And again, it started with public hearings, during which the views of Nigerians were sought.
No, that was in the last parliament, not in this parliament.
Yeah, okay, that was when.
And that parliament has lapsed.
Okay, yeah, but what I'm saying is that those amendments have not sailed through yet. And then on the issue of immunity, they have explained that it is immunity for what is done.
That is not true.
On the floor of parliament.
That is a misrepresentation.
And then on the issue of the other one you raised, membership of commission, that it is not just every commission or parastatal.
Again, that is a misrepresentation.
That it is just the National Assembly Service Commission.
That is a misrepresentation.
That is
no.
Those are the explanations they have.
That again is a misrepresentation. Now, and this I said this the last time I was here. Why do you need to rewrite our constitution in order to write in parliamentary privilege, which has been there as part of our common law well before the amalgamation and has been in existence for nearly 400 years?
As norms, not as a law.
It doesn't need
parliamentary norm.
Parliamentary privilege is an absolutely well understood concept.
Is it justiciable?
Absolutely, yes. You don't need to rewrite our constitution for that purpose. And if you want to do it, why not give us a say? Now, that is the point, that when you begin to railroad citizens in a particular direction, sometimes you push people overboard. And I think we need to begin to take control of our country as citizens. That is really the problem. There's nothing else to it. This country belongs to you and I. The people who exercise office are there temporarily. They are there at our sufferance. They are our tenants. And they cannot continue abusing us the way they are. That is the point. Anybody who wants to go into any pettinesses, this is not about name calling. I have no time to call anybody any names because I too don't have a monopoly of patriotism. So I will not call anybody any names for purposes of a public policy debate. The issues are too serious for insult. Anybody who wants to insult me should feel free to do so, but I'm not going to requite. This is not about insults. We will do a debate. I know on this particular issue I am very right, and I am prepared to pay a price if need be. But it is important that we work hard to defend the rights of citizens of this country who are in existence in spite of government and the things that people who are empowered do to abuse us every day.
This is the first time that civil society or a leading voice in the civil society in Nigeria, like yours, will be taken to this medium of ventilating his views on a pending bill before the National Assembly. Was it deliberate? Very
deliberate and very considered.
Okay. The number one criticism against the video, the short video, is that you try to whip up unnecessary sentiments, distort the provisions of the bill, color it, and give it, dress it up in the garb of religion, simply not just to score cheap political points, but to also discredit members of the National Assembly and discredit the process. And that if anything at all, if you, as somebody who has engaged the National Assembly before now, if a bill is pending before the National Assembly and a public hearing is coming up, you have an opportunity to bring these same views and canvass at the public hearing, rather than take to a public forum.
You see the problem. Why shouldn't Nigeria know about the bill? Is it between me and them? this thing is going to affect absolutely every Nigerian, bar none. Why
Again,
am
they
I?
said that's not correct.
That now, you see, nobody has actually said that I have misrepresented this bill. Nobody. Honorable Peter Patterson, who chairs the committee on CSOs in the House, was on Channels TV last week.
He was sitting there.
Yes,
yesterday.
and he was asked the question, does this apply to churches and mosques? And what he said was, maybe some mischievous people will read it to include that, but that is not their intention. That's what he said. Now, look, when you go to section 57 of this bill, it defines or purports to define what...
Section 57.
Section 57 is the definition section. And it contains proposed definitions for 3 expressions. 1, an organization.
Yeah.
2, an international non-governmental organization. And 3, a non-governmental organization. When you look at the definitions of those those expressions, it includes the word charitable or charity.
An organization, I'm reading from 57, item 7.
Good.
Oh, sorry, item 11.
Yes.
And that's the section 57 is actually the
Definition section.
definition section.
Yes.
And one word that was defined is organization.
Yes.
An organization, for the purposes of the Act and this schedule, is an independent, non-profit making, non-political, and charitable organization.
Thank you. Now,
Are religious organizations?
absolutely yes. Now, the word charitable is, once you use the word charitable organization, you include churches and mosques. As a matter of law, it does not require any other thing. Because the word charitable has a long history of evolution and it has a rationale. What are the things that are captured in the word charitable? Organizations for the relief of poverty, for the advancement of faith and religion, for education, for human well-being and health, sports culture. So, Ikoyi Club is captured by this law. Kano Polo Club is in this law. My local church is there. My son Mohammed's church, mosque is there. It is just basic.
But Gbega and Friends Esusu in the office
It is there.
It's not there.
It is there.
Why should
because
it be
it
there?
is
We are not
an,
a charity. We won't be a charitable.
it is an organization for the relief of poverty. That is a matter that is not up for discussion. Go to any lawyer, commission a legal opinion from anybody who has even a calling acquaintance with the laws of charities and trusts, and the person will come back with the same opinion. Absolutely. Once you use the word charity or charitable, all of these are in. And that is the problem, that we cannot have people looking to make a law when they don't even understand the concepts they're using. People have called me names. I'm old and big enough to be called names. But the one thing I will not do, and I tell you, I repeat myself, I love this country too much to mess around with these kinds of things. The one thing I will not do is go out to mislead deliberately to score cheap political points. This is the most dangerous piece of legislation that we have had tabled since the beginning of our democracy. Let anybody come for a debate on the issue. I'm prepared to debate it. I'm not afraid to debate these issues, but I will not stand down what I have said, not one word.
You said it's the most dangerous piece of legislation.
Yes.
Nigerians would like to know what is dangerous in asking any organization that operates under law not to want to be open, transparent, and accountable to the law.
Very legitimate question. The point is, that is not the objective of this.
Particularly so, civil society bodies whose number one objective is to hold those in government accountable to those government.
Rightfully so. Now, that is the best question about this law. And the point about this bill is it uses that as an artifice for what is precisely its goal, which is political control of our civics. That is what it is headed to. And the model is the Kenyan NGO Coordination Act of 1990. Now, How did the Kenyan NGO Coordination Act come about? In 1990, Kenya had a single party state. The KANU, Kenya African National Union, was the party in power. President Moi was in power. And people were pushing for, people had started arguing for multi-party democracy. Now, that argument for multi-party democracy in Kenya was not led by any political party because there was none. It was led by who? Civil society, NGOs, the Law Society of Kenya, Kenya Human Rights Commission, and all of that. Those were the people who were leading that argument. Moi decided, you know what, we've got to deal with these people. Only people whom we like can engage in this argument. He enacted the NGO Coordination Act. Since then, the Kenyan NGO Coordination Act has become the model for African countries that want to control what civil society does in different places. So you've got Uganda copied, Sierra Leone copied, Guinea-Conakry copied, DRC copied. There is a different model, which is the South African Not-for-Profit Organizations Act, which deals with a whole body of issues, including companies as trusts. And that model addresses governance of fiscal regimes and taxation, making sure that there is sufficient governance and transparency in trusts to make sure that they are not used to evade tax or used to fund politics unlawfully. That is a different model.
The UK charity.
That's closer to the UK Charities Commission. And the Kenyan and Angolan models is what these guys have tried to introduce. And that is why I am saying that it is very dangerous. Because I was there at the beginning of the Kenyan model. I have seen it in different African countries. I have represented people who have been proscribed or sought to be proscribed under these laws in different African countries. And I am saying I've got to give my country the benefit of that expertise and experience. I have a duty to, because knowledge comes with responsibility. This is not a fight between me and my friends in the National Assembly. I know most of them as friends. But this is not an issue between friends. Our country and what happens to it is bigger than whether or not I have a friend in the National Assembly. No. These are matters of principle. And on matters of principle, we've got to make our commitments very clear.
What happens to the argument that all of this is about civil society not wanting to be responsible and not wanting to be open and transparent?
Civil society does not have a choice in the matter. We have laws that require them to be. If they fail, prosecute them, send them to jail. You will not see me go on a picket line to defend any person in civil society who is sent to jail for non-compliance. I'm not asking for self-regulation. I'm not asking for dilution of standards. I am saying apply the laws. From the Criminal Code to the Penal Code, to the National Planning Commission Act, to the Companies and Allied Matters Act, to Value-Added Tax Act, to the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act. I can just start reeling out laws to you.
Yeah, but are there provisions in these laws that you have reeled out that, for instance, governs a situation whereby a Nigerian registered civil society body or community-based organization gets funds from an international funder for a particular purpose, but the directors of the NGO decide to take a huge chunk of that money, 50%, 60% of a money, probably a proposal to address a particular need of a community. But the owners of the NGO, the directors of the NGO, decided to do some other things with that fund. Are there laws that enable anybody to raise issues of transparency and accountability?
Absolutely, yes. You can. There are so many things you can do, from basic criminal prosecution to disqualifying those directors.
Who makes the complaints for? Suppose nobody makes a complaint.
Now, first of all, as a registered trust or charity in the country, or as a registered NGO under the Companies and Allied Matters Act, by the way, I should say that if you're operating without proper incorporation or registration and you're in default of law, therefore, you can be prosecuted for running an unlawful association under the criminal code. That's very basic. Yes? Or the penal code. Now, if you are operating one that is registered, you're supposed to do what? Do your annual returns, your annual filings. You're supposed to do audits. Now, the people whom you submit those books to are supposed to go through them one by one. And they should be able to catch out. You may not be able to catch everybody, but you should at least catch a few. You cannot sit down as a legislator, which is a huge trust, and tell me, for instance, that people are using NGOs to fund terrorism, which is probably the most serious charge anybody can make, and you can't cite one entity. You cannot say that you have caught one entity and prosecuted them. That is beyond irresponsible. If I had my way, a legislator says that, I'll send them to jail because the person is manufacturing fiction or trying to cause trouble for the country. Now, if there is an NGO or anybody masquerading as an NGO and they are even remotely trying to use that to foment terror or support groups that do that, they should be sent to jail and the keys thrown away. The group should be shut down. We have more than enough laws. If nothing else, the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2011, as amended in 2013, has more than enough provisions to make sure that such people don't see the sunlight in Nigeria. Why would a legislator make that kind of charge very happily without feeling they have a duty to substantiate it? Yet, when you read official government reports, you will see designated senior political officers of the Nigerian state identified as having been complicit. If you read the Gajigal Temari report from 2011 or the white paper on it, you will see identified people and you will see a recommendation in black and white under the seal of the crest of the Federal Republic of Nigeria saying we should prosecute them. Those people are still where they were. They are close to government or in government. They are going around. They are meeting people in government. Nothing is happening to them. Now, why don't we at least be honest with our people and show we care? You saw the governor of Edo State a few days ago, last week, at that road, you know, the Ekboma-Bini road, complaining there is an absence of care in this country. This is about caring. We've got to have legislators. So this is not about winning a debate. This is not about a debate. This is about what we understand as a country and what a country means to us. We've got to care enough about this country to know some things are beyond political debate. Now, you cannot propose a bill that seeks to bring within its scope people you have not even thought about, and you start complaining that Chidi Odinkalu manufactured it. I have not manufactured nothing. As a matter of fact, my video does not fully and adequately deal with the dangers in this bill. And I can begin from section 1 on its own.
I'd like us to do that. It's just that I need to push forward the arguments for the bill first. Before, I mean, the arguments justifying the bill.
Please do.
Yes. One other motive, according to the promoters of the bill, is to have a kind of a central database, a kind of one-stop shop, one register, where you flip it open from page 1 to the last page, you can see the names of all NGOs in Nigeria. All NGOs, all faith-based organizations, CBOs, and all of them in one document and in one office. So, first of all, you are registering NGOs. They are not at large, writing proposals to collect funders, donors' money, and diverting it and giving the country a bad name. The activities of every NGO is documented, from what they do to how they do it, how they get funding to do it, and all of that. And again, they are also, all NGOs are also put on the same pedestal. And they observe the same threshold in due diligence and all of that. And then NGOs are also meant to be a little bit accountable. Why will anyone oppose that?
All very desirable objectives.
Why will you oppose that?
To begin with, you don't need any law for that. Any new law. That's the first thing. Now, the people saying this, have they heard of the digital age? All you need is a website. Right? Now, and sadly, the point is we are in a country in which records don't matter, information doesn't matter, and proper accountable records are matters for politics. Now, first of all, the Corporate Affairs Commission maintains a record of all registered entities. Yes? And if you want to know whether or not an entity is registered, all you've got to do is what? Search its website electronically. So the people who are thinking in terms of register are thinking of big books where you will go and pay somebody a bribe, and they will go into a very dusty cubicle and start peeling off, looking for volume 1 and volume 2. That is Old Testament. It no longer happens like that. Yeah? But the other thing is that these days you do have a capacity to achieve all of that with the legal regimes that we have got, as they are. And I've told you, the legal regime we've got is already very extensive and quite complex. The thing is that in Nigeria, laws are things that happen to other people. Laws don't happen to us. We are not supposed to comply with laws. And so when we, and the idea that there are no laws to deal with any of these things or regulate them is profoundly, profoundly mistaken. It's quite erroneous.
Okay.
Now, but we have to learn to make our laws work, and that requires a lot of hard work. It requires detail. It requires application. It requires administration. It requires an attention to the things that we don't do as Nigerians, because as Nigerian public administration or politicians, we like to play big, but a country is actually held together by the tiny things that matter, and we don't like to do the tiny things that matter. Tell me, if you can't administer existing laws, why do you want to put in place a totalitarian new law? Now, and I'm very clear, if my friends in the National Assembly and our friends in the National Assembly want to address these issues genuinely, let's sit down around the table and get down to it. Now, I don't want to see people masquerading as civil society or as NGOs and laundering money or doing unlawful things. No. The question of how do we deal with that in an increasingly interconnected world is a legitimate and genuine question. How do we achieve that? By creating a new bureaucracy in which politicians are going to plant their people and then give them extensive powers to corrupt themselves and destroy the society? No. By creating a new body at a time when the country cannot pay its bill? No. And I told you, the flaws in this law start from section 1, subsection 1. You are proposing to create a new NGO board and a voluntary council, all of them as charges on the public purse. We can't pay our workers.
And we are creating more boards.
And we are creating more boards. Are we okay? We are in a situation in which people in our essential services cannot draw salaries. We have states that are owing people over 10 months of salaries, 12 months of salaries. And we are proposing to create another public body that will be a charge on a country that cannot pay its bills. You want me to keep quiet? Are we serious people? I chaired the Governing Council of the National Human Rights Commission. We did not have staff to do our programming. We do not have money. Okay? We will get a budget of 1.3 billion naira. 1.25 billion was for overheads and salaries. The rest was to service things related to overheads and salaries. Not a dime to do the programming that mattered. Why
in which case the National Human Rights Commission itself was also forced to look for funders.
Exactly. Why do we do this to ourselves? So it begins from there. Section 2 tells you the composition of the body. This body will be composed of 19 people.
20, if you are the executive secretary.
Thank you. So you have the executive secretary appointed by the president. The chair.
He's a member. So
yes. The chair appointed by the president. You will have 9 people representing different ministers.
Yeah.
Yes? So 9 ministers, so it is the president in council with 2 nominees, 9 ministers who are appointees of the president represented on this board. So there is an inbuilt presidential majority.
And of course, the 6 persons of proven integrity
are from each geopolitical zone.
The question is who appoints them? Is
the president. Then you've got
so
3 NGOs.
Only the 3 NGO
exactly.
representatives are
so
not
this thing is a governmental entity owned by the president. Now, if you notice, the chair is not required to be a person of proven integrity. Read it. The executive secretary is not required to be a person of proven integrity. You read it. The 9 people representing the minister are not required to be persons of proven integrity. No, in fact,
but that's not correct. Let me see it.
Go read it.
The executive secretary of the commission, who shall be appointed by the president on the recommendation of the minister. Then 2, the chairman and members of the board of the commission shall be appointed by the president on the recommendation of the minister, subject to confirmation of the Senate. And
it is only the people from this...
Be persons of proven integrity, honor, and ability.
Now, the people from the 6 geopolitical zones will be of proven integrity. But the people representing the ministers, where is the requirement of proven integrity for them? Is there any? No. Okay. So we presume that if you're representing a minister, you're already of proven integrity. You see, now, so you have president in council with 2 nominees, 9 ministers who designate who represents them. Yes? They will be controlling the NGOs. Now, these people can determine what happens to you, give you license, decide. Now, if you go to section 11, yes? Section 11.1. Section 11.1 says that every NGO will be registered.
Yeah.
Correct?
In the manner specified.
Good.
By the
now, go to section 11.4.
The commission may, by notice in the Gazette, exempt such non-governmental organizations from registration as it may determine.
Does that strike you as odd? You are going to, everybody is required to register, but you can exempt anybody. Do you understand what I mean? Now, what does that mean?
That's a very unusual exercise of discretion.
Thank you. That means what? You
may target some people.
Thank you. You will only... So, and it achieves 2 things. 1, you target some people. 2, you can use this for corruption. So, don't worry. You know what?
Because it's exercise of discretion.
Thank you. We will not worry you. Just give me 1 million naira. Okay? That is written into this law. And people will... You see, the thing about legal drafting is you can make everything look anodyne. You can make everything look easy and not dangerous. This thing is so dangerous, you don't even begin to know about it. Yeah. Meanwhile, they can deregister you. And when they deregister you, you can only you can appeal to the minister. The same minister who, under section 56, can give them any directives they must comply with. You can appeal to that same minister, and that minister will have 30 days to determine, and his decision will be final. So the whole thing is constructed precisely to target specific people for specific mechanisms of political control. Those who don't see it, I cannot hit them over the head, because we are all citizens and we're entitled to reach our different conclusions. But the design is manifestly clear. I did not draft it. All I did was read it. And I don't think government should be controlling us because we don't agree with it. We are entitled as citizens to agree with our government when it does good, to support it when it does good, to encourage it to continue to do good, but when it doesn't do good, to say so too, because it is our duty to do so. And when I read this law, what I see is, or this bill, what I see is a proposal to delegitimize and render illegal the capacity to tell government when it does not do good or when it is wrong. That cannot be allowed in a Republican democracy.
Okay, the tweets are coming in. Symbol Olorunfemi, you may wish to probably take a second look at the section you are directing me to. I'm not so sure that is the right section. He said that the definition in Section 7, I think it's talking about definition of civil society. So the definition in Section 7 excludes organizations with religious, political, or ethical or ethnic bias. Please read it to the end.
No.
And I've tried to read Section 7. Section 7 is not actually the section dealing with definition of...
It's 57.
57, okay.
Yeah.
It's 57. He said 7, so that's why...
It's 57.
Yeah, let me see whether 57 actually captures what it's saying. In this act, unless the context otherwise... okay, an organization for the purpose of this act, in this schedule, is independent, not profit-making, not political. Yeah, I already read it. That's what I read. Not profit-making, not political, and charitable organizations with the primary objective of enhancing the social...
I mean, I'll give you an example.
yeah. In other words, you say that not... in other words, if it is not political, political organizations are already excluded. If it is... no, it didn't talk about religion.
It does not. It includes.
It doesn't talk about religion.
Once you use the word charitable or charity,
Yeah,
you bring
it doesn't
in
exclude
all faith-based organizations. Period.
with the primary objectives of enhancing social, cultural, and economic well-being of communities and the operation of that organization. Okay, this is what it says. And the operation of that organization does not have a religious, political, or ethnic bias.
No. Once you use the word charitable, it is very clear.
It doesn't matter whether it's a religious
Absolutely
or
not.
political
Because
organization or it has ethnic bias.
you see, the word charitable, you will not be able
The
to...
word charitable at the beginning overrides whether they are
Absolutely.
religious
Yes.
or they are not religious.
Absolutely. Because by definition, faith-based organizations are charities that actually contribute to the cultural well-being of society and social affairs. That is the point.
All right, symbol.
So, take for instance, I'll give you an example. St. Finbar's College or St. Gregory's. What are they? They're charities. They're NGOs. People don't recognize that. They're trusts. Or St. Saviour's in Lagos. Okay? These are public trusts set up by faith for the advancement of education on a non-discriminatory basis. Now, that is all. And people don't understand these things. Or you take Island Club. It's an NGO. But you see, we've got to draw some distinctions. And this is the point. Part of the objective of the video, quite honestly, was educational. People need to understand what an NGO is. And a lot of us think it's about Civil Liberties Organization and Amnesty International.
Or SERAP.
Or SERAP. Those organizations that do explicitly governmental work and appear to be able to articulate political views sometimes. But social clubs and faith-based entities and organizations like Isusu for the relief of poverty are the biggest NGOs in the country. And they are the longest standing NGOs in the country. And they're also the NGOs with the greatest degree of legitimacy in our communities. They fulfill need, they touch lives, they provide services, and those are the people about whom this is. And I keep repeating myself, I am too lawyered up to be caught by this law. But there are too many people who don't know the significance of this law. And I think I owe myself a responsibility in conscience to say, warn everybody so they understand what the stakes are. So that if the National Assembly wants to have a public hearing, everybody who is affected should come. Nothing for us without us. Let me repeat, nothing for us without us. They think by making it between me and any other person, you know, we are friends, we can sort it out, paddy, Nigerian style. No. The Nigerians who are affected should be in the room. If they are not in the room,
red flags in the bill that you...
There are too many red flags.
Actually, if not for you this morning, this section related to the discretionary power of the board to register or not to register. It skipped my...
There are too many red flags. I could do a day-long seminar on the red flags in this piece of legislation.
Yeah, because the objective I'm trying to drive at here is whether those red flags can be taken off this bill and save the areas of the bill that are probably good for humanity and good for our society. Because again, I keep raising the issue of whether civil society does not want to be accountable, wants to keep running in an opaque
Civil society
manner.
must be accountable.
How do we ensure
That is my position.
How do we ensure
and
that?
If you go,
for instance, one key objective of the bill again is to ensure that if you have raised money to provide maybe, okay, pipe-borne water in the community as an NGO, you can't take 90% of that money to go and be buying bulletproof cars for the executive directors of the NGO, go and use it to acquire mansions, and then spend just a tiny fraction of it on that objective.
You're preaching to the converted.
What about those who are not converted? Because government says these are the things that NGOs have become these days.
And I am saying.
And again, how do we also save the small NGOs, the little ones here and there, the one-man NGO, three-man NGO.
They're called Mongos.
That also spend their money in the name of NGO, spend their money on charitable responsibilities. How do we also save them from the rigors of this bill, the hardship that this bill will also impose on them?
Now, let me ask you.
So, two extremes here.
Let me ask you the question. You work as a Nigerian, so I presume you have paid school fees for people who are not your children. Now, in other countries, and that is a charitable, by the way, that is a charitable act.
One-man charity.
Yes. Now, in most countries where the fiscal regimes work, you can get a tax rebate for that. In Nigeria, that is not even documented. We take it for granted.
Well, now, or that we think that when you do good, don't publicize it.
Thank you.
So that God can bless you.
Thank you. Now, I would like to see a regime of fiscal governance in which we are able to requite as a country these kinds of acts. Because there's a reason why that these regimes exist. Why? It is to compensate those who complement the state in service provision, in provision of social goods. And to do that, we need a different model of legislation, not for political control, but for fiscal governance. And if we can come together, and I'm happy to offer myself to help, if we can come together with the people in the National Assembly or executive and say, let's identify how we can do this within existing infrastructure without adding to the overheads of government, I'm happy to come in. That is my affirmative. So I'm not saying there is not something we can do here. I am saying this is not the way to do it. And we cannot do it this way if we are committed to a country that can work for all of us. But I am happy to bring myself and bring a team with the technical know-how, and let us all sit down as people who care for our country and say, let's do this thing and present the country with a bill and do a roadshow, include everybody so that we protect all the interests that need to be protected.
Let me read a few things, tweets, and then I'll come back to say thank you to you, Prof. Tony Uzo answered, I cry for this country. This bill is only there to frustrate the performance of NGOs. The legislation know what they are after. Sheikh Party says, as I said, he's a man of his word. I agree with him that a Nigerian is always a Nigerian, no matter where he or she comes from. That's Sheikh Party. Great Stoic says, the regulatory body they are recommending is another way of political patronage to use settle more political loyalists. Amogbala and Bab CFR, whether Prof. Odinkalu demonize the bill or not, it doesn't take away the unequivocal fact that many NGOs make fortunes out of it. Ozone Festus, Dr. Chidi, what is your alternative proposal? It's easy to criticize, condemn, difficult to provide solution. He has just
I've just done that, you know, let me, you know, a lot of people like abuse. You know, Peter is my good friend. He was with us in civil society when he's finished in the National
President
Assembly of Nupeng. So I'm not going to come here and abuse anybody because I don't give. I start by crediting everybody with good faith. So this is not personal. Anybody who wants to abuse me, as I said, is free. But I will not abuse anybody for purposes of public policy debate. There are serious issues of the well-being of our country here. I will not back down.
All right. And like Honorable Patas said yesterday, there's going to be a public hearing. Would you be attending that public hearing to direct opinions along the line that you have identified?
If they are going to do a public hearing in good faith, because my last encounter with them was not exactly in good faith. If they're going to do a public hearing in good faith, we own the National Assembly. It belongs to us as Nigerians. I'm a Nigerian, I'll be there.
All right. Thank you so much. Professor Chidi Odinkalu is a human rights activist, one of the very leading voices in human rights community in Nigeria, former chairman of the National Human Rights Commission, President General Unity Schools Old Student Association. Sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
That's Focus Nigeria today. Thank you for investing your time with us. Enjoy the rest of the day. Stay out of trouble so that we can meet tomorrow.